And of course, all of a sudden as well, we've got that turd that won't flush, and I'm talking about Tony Blair suddenly coming on again.
He
I mean, I don't know.
come back from nowhere, hasn't he, Martin?
I don't know anyone. I don't know anyone who's more hated in politics for the damage he's done to this country. You know,
and now he's going to come back and be our vaccine organizer. That's what he wants to do. And I think if that doesn't raise a few concerns, or people don't start to question why that might be, why would somebody who's been out of politics for quite an invariably long time want to come back to support a movement that, from my understanding, probably doesn't have any sort of knowledge in this arena?
I'm sure you'll agree. Once you see some things, you can't unsee them again.
No, you can't.
And good people like yourself as well are, taking time out to try and help other people see these things. And, I regard us as freedom fighters, freedom for truth, really. And people need to do this because, we don't get up in the morning for no reason to do this. We do it because it's the right thing to do.
It is the right thing to do. You're absolutely right, because if we don't want to turn into a Chinese communist regime, then we need to wake up and we need to take a deep breath, suck it up, and come together as a human race, because that's what this calling's all about, Martin. That's what it's all about. I've got a friend of mine. She's based in Ibiza. And she had COVID, so she actually caught the virus.
Wow.
Her test came back negative. She did another test, and also that came back negative. Wow. Her family also got the coronavirus, and all of their tests came back negative.
Wow. That doesn't give me much confidence at all. Yeah.
You're right, because actually, look, if the problem is that the picture that has been painted is not the true reflection of what is really going on. And that again goes back to, you have to look at different news sources. You have to, because actually when you start looking at not mainstream media, for an example, you get a very different story, Martin. Because you're right, because it is turning into, quashing freedom of speech. That's just diminishing before our eyes. Like, for an example, you could put a post on Facebook and it could be removed by a fact checker, for an example.
I mean, I've had 8 fact checks against my post, but I've successfully overturned them all. But another thing,
really? Well done.
It had to be done. I'm not being called a liar.
Good.
Hi everyone. Now, what a week it's been. More bizarreness going on in our lockdown. It feels like martial law at the moment, doesn't it, with all this going on? I am very lucky today to be joined by Cassie, who's escaped London when she avoided the lockdown restrictions before. How are you, Cassie?
I'm well, thank you, Martin. How are you?
Not bad, my fellow inmate. You keeping well?
I am keeping well. It does feel like we're locked in a prison at the moment, and our own homes of a prison, isn't it?
It does feel very much like that. Now, as we've seen, there's been lots of stuff happening in the fake news mainstream media. But one thing I just really wanted to touch on was there's been a lot of people talking about the inaccuracy of these PCR tests. Now, it's been reported only 7% are actually accurate. What are your thoughts on this and the implications that it's had on lockdown in general? Because these are the stats driving behind it.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. I think that, there's been a little bit of media coverage recently, which I've been very grateful for, Martin. I'm going to be honest, because it's taken a very, very long time to get mainstream media to cover this topic. Well, what I've been looking at. And I think now, I noticed the other day that Sky News that reported how the data could be invariably wrong. And that's obviously driven by the PCR tests. I also watched another lady who dissected a PCR test and basically found that actually it had nanoparticles at the end of the tip.
What?
Yeah. So I mean, the authenticity of them have been questioned for quite a long time, and I think that's starting to come to the surface now of how they're not reliable. I mean, I am not medically trained. I'm not a medical professional, but I've heard numerous people speaking about how these tests are not appropriate for the use that they're being used for, which is obviously one of the fundamental principles as to why we're having these serious lockdowns and implications imposed on us, which is a problem, is a very big problem.
I mean, these stats are actually what's driving these lockdowns. So I think the original lockdown we could have all probably gone along with absolutely fine, but then we had an odd lockdown just before Christmas, didn't we? And then first day back at work, straight away, boom, lockdown again. And for what? As we know, the mainstream media mislead people on the actual COVID death rates, because they say that it could be someone who's had COVID within 30 days that they've now elevated to 60 days. And it's quite, what's happened is people have actually had a heart attack or something, but because they could have been one of those people, and that's outside that 7% who was wrongly told they had COVID, boom, they turn it around to make it look like they've had that. But would you have a COVID test yourself?
Personally, no, I wouldn't. No, I would absolutely, avoid that as much as I possibly could, because I just know that there's more to the COVID test. It's not a reliable source of information to diagnose. I mean, first and foremost, come on, Martin, you pretty much know if you feel unwell, you know that something might be wrong. So why would you need to go and rush out and go and get a COVID test? For an example, the other day, I've got a friend of mine, she's based in Ibiza, and she had COVID. So she actually caught the virus.
Wow.
Her test came back negative. She did another test, and also that came back negative. Wow. Her family also got the coronavirus, and all of their tests came back negative.
Wow. That doesn't give me much confidence at all. What was her symptoms like? Did she explain them to you? Because the government told us that for the vast majority, the symptoms are very mild and like the common cold, if that.
Yeah, well, I mean, her symptoms. So she had on the chest, she felt dizzy, and it was like an extended version of the flu, essentially. And she was been ill for about 3 weeks. So, yeah.
No, and of course, what all we hear now is this race to push out this wonderful vaccine that's going to it says that there's no guarantee that it'll stop you getting the virus or even passing it on. So, can you see any sense of even taking this?
Well, again, this is highly questionable because actually, they have also said, I think there was a headline yesterday, and it said in the headline, you don't think you're safe even if you can still spread the virus even if you've had the vaccine. So surely doesn't that defeat the whole purpose of having a vaccine if
exactly.
It's not going to prevent you, it's not going to save you from the cure. And also you have to start looking at who has invested in the vaccine. I think that's the most key things.
Follow the money
behind the vaccine. Yeah.
And we know who one of the main people has been trying to push this. Somebody who funds the not only the World Health Organization but the BBC, who have been obviously pushing this out. And somebody else who's bought a lot of farmland in the United States recently, and he's come back from somewhere. You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely know who you're talking about. And this particular person also has created genetically modified mosquitoes. And this person again has been well and truly behind, alongside lots of other elites, shall we say. A recent headline this week that I've read is that they're saying breast milk isn't natural. And yeah, breast milk isn't natural. They've created genetically modified breast milk, and it can make mothers anti-vaxxers.
An anti-vax.
And that was
Again,
that was a headline,
yeah.
from this
and of
week.
course, for those people who who can't figure out what we're talking about, it is obviously Mr. Gates, who has been an advocate for giving out vaccines for many years, and of course, there's been some horror stories from Africa too, coming out from that. But again, though, that's another smear word, isn't it? Anti-vaxxer. I mean, just because someone doesn't want a vaccine, it doesn't make them anti-vaxxer. It means, we want a safe vaccine, and only if we need it. Why should we have a vaccine for something that obviously, like something like flu, it's not going to affect everyone. If you're young and healthy, why would you risk putting those chemicals in your body? And we've seen some of the damage it's done to people that they've been suppressing as well. And of course, all the major pharmaceuticals who are doing very well at the moment, they are, if they got impunity from being sued in any way. I mean, do you not think? Do you think people should take a bit of more of a look before taking such things?
Absolutely. I find that, a thing that I've noticed more frequently, and I'm sure you've experienced the same thing, as a lot of these so-called conspiracies are being suppressed. Now that's concerning, and I think I mentioned this in our podcast that we did a couple of weeks ago, that if there was nothing to this so-called conspiracy, then why would this stuff be constantly being removed? And like, I've been reading a lot of the ingredients in the various different vaccines that we have, and they are alarming. They are absolutely alarming. And I mean, honestly, if people really do need to take a step back and have a look at different sources and have a look at different things to come to some other conclusion. I mean, like I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, that on the World Economic Forum, there's lots of stuff, what they're telling you, what they're going to be doing, the fourth industrial revolution, etc. And people really need to take the time out of their lives to invest in this, to have a look at this, because it is serious, very serious.
And that's the thing, people don't even bother to scratch the surface, do they? If they did, then they would start pulling all this apart, because people are too reliant on the mainstream media, and they actually blindly trust all these people. But you could count on one hand the amount of people that actually own all these media corporations. And as I mentioned earlier, the BBC receive funding from the likes of Bill Gates. So, he who pays the piper calls the tune. And if people just do a little bit of research on some of these facts, and not the spin that they're giving you, like on these death rates, and as every year at this time, they're saying, oh yeah, the hospitals are overwhelmed. They're trying to make it out to be because of this, but like I said, it's every year the same. And actually, more beds are being taken away from hospitals every year, whilst the population's rising. But obviously, you're not going to learn things unless you do a tiny bit of research. And that's all it takes, really. We just need more critical thinkers to start questioning these things. But
and in a sense, Martin, it's not even critical thinking, really, because if you think about it, all you need to do is just look at a few different sources and you will come up with a different conclusion. And if you don't, then this is the thing. I mean, some people never come up with the other conclusion, but I think most people would. I really do. And I can't remember what I was going to say to that, but there was something that I can't remember. It's completely slipped my mind now.
I'm sure it'll come back to you. But what we have seen in society, though, is it's split a lot of people, isn't it? So once again, we discussed earlier as well, like there's no left or right politics anymore. This is between good and evil, and it has split people, because I've been accused of a murderer just for questioning why we need to wear a mask. And of course, it's easy for people to attack you without doing any research. But I think what I tend to find as well, it seems to be like public sector are quite happy to be locked down, like the teachers and the nurses. and
Yeah.
those on furlough, which I believe really is just paying people off. But of course, a lot of people want to get back to normal now because it is affecting people's psychological health. We've seen operations cancelled, and I just wonder what your thoughts are really of the consequences of the virus rather than the virus itself. Where do you see us heading?
At the moment, I see us all blindly walking into a very, very big trap, Martin. And that's my biggest concern right now is that, you know, people are just exactly like you said, listening to the mainstream media, not taking a look at other resources that are still readily available on the internet. Still, you know, there are people posting lots of contradictory posts. You know, like for an example, not so long ago in the mainstream media, they were saying that Bill Gates has got a meeting lined up with Boris Johnson this year. And, you know, just when you think about things like that and you start to listen to what people like maybe yourself and lots of other people are talking and discussing about right now, you have to start questioning what's going on. And I think if we carry on the way that we're going at this right precise moment, I don't know if we're going to be losing humanity. And that's my concern.
We're going to, and we're all going to be just reliant on the state, and we'll be told what to do. But I mean, I've seen pictures. You noticed the World Economic Forum as well. We've seen, Hancock was there speaking to Bill Gates, so what they're doing there. Then, of course, all of a sudden as well, we've got that turd that won't flush, and I'm talking about Tony Blair suddenly coming on again.
I mean, I don't know. He come back from nowhere, hasn't he, Martin?
I don't know anyone. I don't know anyone who's more hated in politics for the damage he's done to this country, you know.
And now he's going to come back and be our vaccine organizer. That's what he wants to do. And I think if that doesn't raise a few concerns, or you know, people don't start to question why that might be. You know, why would somebody who's been out of politics for quite an invariably long time want to come back to support a movement that, from my understanding, probably doesn't have any sort of knowledge in this arena?
No, and of course we know of the blood that he's got on his hands from all the trouble that he was involved in out in the Middle East, and the irony of him being a peace envoy for is just laughable, really. But it's funny, all these people are coming back out again, you know, all these old leaders, and thinking they know what's best for us. Something really doesn't add up at all, really. But it's quite interesting because across Europe as well, we've seen with these lockdowns and these what's been going on in all over the country. Everyone's been curfews and things. They're all starting to rebel now. A lot of the other countries as well. A lot of people had enough. You know, restaurant owners who've seen their businesses crippled, and there's no justification for it. You know,
no, and I think I've seen this week Italy have taken a stance, and they have just gone absolutely no way, and they've all gone and opened up. And then you can see, I think it was Holland yesterday, they were rioting in the streets. And you know, and I think actually they burnt a COVID testing centre down, and something happened with one of their bridges in Holland yesterday as well. I'm not entirely sure of the full situation. So you know, you've got the French that have been rioting, and these things are suppressed again. I mean, you know, the only some of the news sources where you can get this kind of information is like RT News, for an example. Might get a couple minutes of media on Sky or something, but it's very limited.
And the way I think, and I'd say, I mean, in a lot of those countries as well, the police have been some quite often been on like the side of those people as well. But certainly in France, they've you know, they're not happy about the way things go. And in this country, I mean, I don't know what it feels like for you, but it just feels like we're entering some sort of a police state where everything's monitored. I mean, last weekend it was snowing where I am, and we had the police chasing off the kids and their parents who were out sledging.
Oh wow!
It's just things like that, and they seem to be going after the easy targets again. And to me, it feels like it's the Gestapo from 1930s Germany, and they're encouraging people to tell on their neighbours and things like that. It's I don't think people are learning from history, and it makes you want it
Look,
to end.
I honestly believe, you know, when we spoke to Catherine the other day, and she made such a great point that that actually what it is the British people have never had to fight for freedom. We've always lived in this very, very comfortable bubble that, you know, everything's safe. We've got all these laws and legislations put into place. But actually, if you take that time to have a quick look at what is really going on at the moment, we've near enough abolished our human rights. Boris Johnson has pretty much got rid of that. Again, this week as well, I know it's been heavily in the news, is that, you know, are we going to have to start paying for our holiday in whilst working? So there's lots of questions around that at the moment as well. And I think you just have to take a look at these draconian measures that are coming in, and then obviously all of these restrictions. And if you add all of these things together, then you start looking, hang on a minute, that doesn't make sense. Are we actually losing our freedom? And that's where people in our country in particular haven't really ever had to go down that road before. So I think that's why quite a lot of people don't take it seriously.
They don't. And when you think, well, even about living memory, we had people storming the beaches of Normandy to claim our freedom. I mean, the way they've diluted society now, those people, there just isn't the backbone anymore. But what do you think it'll take for the British people to say enough is enough now? You know, what will it take?
It's a really hard question, Martin, because I just want to help as many people to see the light with what is really happening at the moment. But it's such a hard question. I think if people really could see what was going on, and people really did delve into this situation, I think what would happen is that there would be an uprise. I think that's what would probably happen.
Yeah, and as we've seen,
push back on it.
Yeah, and as we've seen recently, though, the freedom of speech, more recently, it's always been under threat, is gone absolutely haywire, really. And I've always said people should be able to say whatever they want, as long as they don't incite violence. You have an opinion, but we've seen the freedom of speech go absolutely, completely eroded. Obviously, last week when the sitting president of the United States had his social media,
unbelievable.
Down.
Yeah.
That, I mean, if that doesn't concern anyone, I don't know what will, because once again, that was an elected man, and just because people don't like what he says, you can't just silence these people, because all that will do is just bring out extremism then. And it's exactly, again, reflections of 1930s Germany, the way they did that to people. My biggest,
you're right, because actually, you know, look, if the problem is that the picture that has been painted is not the true reflection of what is really going on, and that again goes back to, you have to look at different news sources. You have to, because actually, when you start looking at not mainstream media, for an example, you get a very different story, Martin. And that would probably help people understand a lot better as to what's really happening in the States, alongside globally as well. Because you're right, because it is turning into, you know, quashing freedom of speech. That's just diminishing before our eyes. You know, like, for an example, you could put a post on Facebook and it could be removed by a fact checker, for an example. So anything that would go against the coronavirus could be off your page within, I don't know, a couple of minutes or so.
Yeah, I've seen it happen. And I mean, I've had 8 fact checks against my post, but I've successfully overturned them all. But another thing,
really? Well done.
It had to be done. I'm not being called a liar. That's good. But another thing they started doing is they call it misleading information. But then, well, how come they don't do that to the mainstream media then, when they're being misleading, pretending like now they hit 100,000 COVID deaths when it's not directly related to COVID? You know, the count so far, a week or two ago, just 2,500 people died directly from it since the start. But, you know, we know how they fudge the figures. So why aren't those sorts of things fact-checked? It just moves one way, and it's very dangerous. Very, very dangerous.
Well, it goes a lot deeper, doesn't it, Martin, than
Mm,
just the questioning around it. I mean, when you start to unravel this situation, should we
mm,
say, you start to realize that actually it does go a lot deeper,
mm.
and then the pieces of the puzzle come together, and it's
Sinister,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know. And I think once, I'm sure you'll agree, once you see some things, you can't unsee them again.
No, you
Um, and
can't.
and good people like yourself as well are, taking time out to try and help other people see these things. And I regard us as freedom fighters, freedom for truth, really. And
Yeah,
people need to do this because we don't get up in the morning for no reason and do this. We do it
no.
because it's the right thing to do.
It
It's
is the right thing to do.
mm,
You're absolutely right. Because if we don't want to turn into a Chinese communist regime, then we need to wake up and we need to take a deep breath, suck it
mm,
up, and come together as
mm,
a human race. Because that's what this calling's all about, Martin. That's what
mm,
it's all about.
exactly. And it doesn't matter about the color of your skin, whether you're black, brown, or white. We all
No,
want the same things. We all bleed the same red blood. We all want
yeah,
our freedom. That's all we just want to live happily. That's all we ever wanted. Um,
absolutely.
and that's why it's
And
disgraceful when you get people trying to pit people against each other, like these different minority groups for their own
but
benefits.
exactly, and this like situation with the anti-vaxxer movement
Mm,
is absolutely trying to conquer and divide people.
mm,
It's trying to, the Black Lives Matter again is trying to conquer and divide. Look, I've got black friends, I've got Asian friends, I've got,
mm,
it doesn't matter. For me, I love culture, I find it very interesting,
exactly.
I love it, I embrace it.
Mm.
But I think that this conquer and divide stuff is what people are not really seeing, and that's another problem.
And that's it. That's all they've ever done, really.
Yeah,
They've tried to make out people who want just immigration controls as being racist, and it's not the case at all.
absolutely not.
And things
my
like
my
that.
thing with that as well is like, if we were stuck in a war zone,
Mm,
would you want to go somewhere else if you had the opportunity?
well,
And
exactly,
I think
exactly.
that's a really big question to
Anyone
ask,
would.
isn't it?
Of course, you'd want
Yeah,
you'd want the best life for yourself as well. And you can understand why these people want to get out of places like that, but they just make out, again, just use it as a weapon to pit people against each other, and that's all they do all the time. But we need to get together now, as you said, the human race all work together on this,
yeah.
because there'll be no one left to fight for you otherwise, and we'll just be serving these people once they've got basically control over everything. Because that's all.
And what they're doing in this situation, which is the scariest part of it, is they're actually covertly manipulating people
Mm,
in the masses.
mm,
But actually, when you look at different sources, like i.e. the World Economic Forum, for an example,
mm,
you actually start to see that what we're saying could be true.
mm.
And they're credible sources, but they just don't advertise that stuff on the TV,
They don't.
on the mainstream. Yeah,
Exactly. And all the information's out there, but it's up to people to go and find it.
have a look.
Basically.
Yeah,
You don't rely on anyone else. Don't rely on the mainstream media to say, because they won't. They'll just give you half truths, which is being economical with the truth is just as bad as lying. So I think as long as we continue our fight to get this out to people, the more people we can wake up, really. And we don't,
absolutely.
it's not about trying to say I told you so or anything. It's about just helping people
No.
see things for what it really is, you know.
And I think look, when I started to realize what was really going on, it really did make me feel sick to the pit of my
Mm,
stomach. And there was a part of me that didn't want to believe any of this
mm,
was true. And but I had to accept it, because like you said, once you see it, there is no turning back after that.
yeah,
Once you know,
yeah.
you just can't. You can't.
And I'm sure you, like the South, will fight while there's breath in our body to stop this evil from happening.
Absolutely, Martin. Absolutely. It's become the biggest passion of mine recently, because it's so important. It's so important.
Now, I don't know about
It's
you,
the
but
most important thing.
yeah, I'd say like over this probably since the start of this pandemic, really, I've met some absolutely amazing people. It's, you know,
Yeah.
it's been absolutely incredible. So although there's been a lot of darkness, there's been a lot of positivity as well, and I've met some genuinely nice and decent people, and it fills me with hope as well. And to know there's good people like yourself out there fighting for this, and
Yeah.
so once we all come together, we will be unstoppable. I'm absolutely sure of that.
Oh, that's what it is, Martin. It's just a coming togetherness. That's all we need. That's all we need.
Exactly.
And then we will win.
We will.
We will
Good
win.
always prevails over evil. So don't you
Absolutely. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you very much for speaking.
You're more than welcome.
Hopefully, we'll be able to catch up very soon again, because, as you know, things just happen every single day, and it's never still. And things that we were accused of being tinfoil hat wearers before all start to happen now. So, yeah. So,
yes, there doesn't seem to be so much of a conspiracy in the conspiracy anymore, Martin, does there? Unfortunately.
Exactly. No, exactly. Yeah. So no, and I was just going to quickly say, actually, the CIA coined the phrase conspiracy theorists, and they also said that social distancing is the best way to control people. So no, but no, thank you very much.
Yeah, no, you're welcome, Martin. Thank you.
Please
so
come
much.
on again, and you take care, and we shall speak soon.
We will. Thank you so much, Martin. Take care.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye. Bye. Bye.